Jeff Keeling, a Fort Worth native and resident of Alpine for more than 10 years, is a lecturer of biology and natural resource management at Sul Ross State University, specializing in applied plant sciences. Teaching since 2011, his areas of interest include plant taxonomy, floristics, plant collection and preservation, rare plant distribution, desert, mountain, and grassland ecology, and horticulture. So he's a very much has a widespread knowledge of the plant ecology in this area. During his graduate career, he completed and published a vascular plant inventory and subsequent analysis of the nature reserve north of Fort Davis, Texas. Some of you got a chance to go out and walk the Madera Trail. And by the way, I want to hear about field trips from you and how you enjoyed them. The Conservancy is 28,000 acres surrounding Mount Livermore, so there's plenty more to explore out there. He also recorded several rare and undocumented species of the state of Texas and the United States. He's also credited with finding only the third ever specimen of Solanium cordycetum. Yeah, cordycetum, a rare, possibly endangered nightshade found in Valentine, Texas, and co-authored the publication describing it as a new species in 2014. While continuing rare plant research and environmental consulting in the Southwest, he's also involved in fire ecology research and guides hikes throughout the desert mountains, as well as instructing ecology, biology, and plant identification. I'm most impressed with the fact that he works at Sul Ross and teaches our students. He was so helpful in sending students to us and getting some posters from students. And he got me an invasive plant speaker for my panel, Kelsey Wogan, who's a graduate student. These are the kinds of people we want to participate in these events. So please welcome Jeff Keeling.
All right, thank you so much, Meg. So, yes, as you said, I have been out here for a while, is what that is what that intro sounds like. That is mostly true up to last year when I got brought on full-time at Sul Ross, teaching biology, general botany, as well as plants and people, which is an ethnobotany class, and a wildland plants upper level ecology class. So we are well into our my first full year. So I am hoping to possibly start graduate work, doctoral work within the next year as a plan to take this further, to expand my knowledge of both botany and of our natural world. So this is a presentation that I pretty much present two different ways. One is for general public and kind of just like people who like to look at pretty pictures of plants, which obviously all of us do. But this one is going to be more geared towards the plant nerd and have some numbers, some families, some data in there from the thesis that I completed for my master's research. Am I just clicking right here? Okay. Perfect. So there's the title. And yes, as a working title, this changes quite often. So from vegetation to a sky island, vascular flora and floristic analysis of the Nature Conservancy Davis Mountains Preserve of Jeff Davis County, Texas. So here we have the rugged skyline created by the Davis Mountains, which are massive in terms of their square mileage that they cover across the Trans-Pecos. And I just like to almost consider just the beating heart of the Trans-Pecos, just nice central location. They take up pretty much all of Jeff Davis County, the summit being Mount Livermore right here, almost 8,400 feet in elevation. This is literally one of the most unique, forbidding, and irreplaceable ecosystems, I think, anywhere in the state, just with its super complex topography that is a result of pretty active volcanism around 39 to 35 million years ago. I'm getting ahead of you with my geology. I need to slow down on my geology. I don't have a lot of it. But here is the study area that the Nature Conservancy owns. This is roughly 100,000 acres, I believe, all across the Davis Mountains. So the scope of my study is going to be basically right around it here. I don't have a mouse. So this 33,000 acres is the Nature Conservancy proper. This up here is north of Highway 118. So where we were yesterday, we stopped about right here, and the property continues pretty much up Madera Canyon for another several miles. And then this property right here is south of 118. Mount Livermore is right here, for those of you that have climbed Mount Livermore before. So this is roughly, I would say, almost 20,000 acres. And during my study, I gotta throw this out there. This was 10 years ago when this study was done. I started in 2011. I was 22 when I started it. So quite a while ago, but I did these roughly 20,000 acres. So where most of you are familiar with, and by far, definitely the summit of the peak is included in this range, as well as Pine Peak over here to the right. I keep forgetting I don't have a mouse on here. Pine Peak is going to be the third largest summit in the Davis Mountains, next to Richmond Mountain. I think this is over here. And so those three tallest peaks on the property right there, with Madera Canyon stretching north of Mount Livermore. This is just a region of fascinating ecology, biodiversity, just hotspot. We characterize it as, just being a lifeblood to the region. There's just a smattering of different organisms that I came across during my time up there. You've got canyon tree frogs that are around 8,000 feet elevation, rock rattlesnakes, blacktail rattlesnakes, orchids, swallowtails, all sorts of amazing looking creatures. So to introduce you to the property, those of you that have been there recognize this view from the summit. You're looking north over Madera Canyon. This stretches basically to Toyaval, which is close to Balmorhea. So I believe it's considered almost like 90 miles. This is Laura's Rock that is directly north of the peak. And, Laura's Rock, north of the peak. Madera Canyon stretching north to Balmorhea. Here is Pine Peak off to the east. You can see the telescopes right there at the McDonald Observatory. Olympia Canyon stretches a long way off the back of Mount Livermore. And a lot of it runs off of the property. So there's a lot of collections on this property that were considered to be in Olympia Canyon back when people made very, very vague locality details on their herbarium species. So it's an important one to consider, that if something is on Olympia Canyon, it definitely doesn't mean that it's on this property proper. So Short Pine Canyon is the same way. It runs off the south side of the peak very quickly, jumps off onto the Livermore Ranch property, which is another private ranch. And then the western angle, Tobe Canyon, runs onto the property. A lot of you are familiar with Tobe Spring. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Goat Canyon quickly runs off of the property as well to the west. So just a quick overview of the topology, the climate. This is all climate data that was from my study area, but it's characterized as cool temperate, receiving annual lows around 0 to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, highs up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So just also considering that this is a sky island ecosystem, we're at the top of the peak, we're at 8,400 feet. These northern facing slopes are around 7,400 to 7,600 feet. So you get that characteristic high enough precipitation, cool enough climate with the high elevation to support biodiversity and pine forests that aren't characterized usually by being in a desert condition. So these the Sky Island ecosystem is given its its biodiversity through this climate. There's the precipitation. This was in 2013, I believe. So kind of similar rain conditions that we've had to 2013. The drought was 2011, so around 6 inches the entire year. And then you have 2013 up to 20 inches. I talked to Will Hart at the ranch we were at yesterday at the Caldwell, and they said that they had roughly 18 inches in the last 2 months. So yeah, 15 to 20 was my guess. So this is basically a really, really good year for these reaches. So some precipitation, or sorry, some temperature highs and lows, looking at around 90s during the summer to getting pretty cold during the winter. These this Elbow Canyon weather station is the closest in proximity to the Livermore and Caldwell ranches and everything up there. So again, quick geology, 39 to 35 million years ago, these mountains formed pretty much the single largest part of the Trans-Pecos, Texas volcanic field, and represent basically the northernmost extension of the Sierra Madre Orientals, reaching northwards out of Mexico. So some different geology types right there for you geology people, mostly igneous rock. Definitely when you get up to the Livermore reach, so all intrusive igneous rock. We've got the soils that overlay with it. So soils of the hills and mountains, plus the soils of the valleys, plains and basins. Most of what you're seeing is the Puerto Madrone rock outcrop right here, this purple Puerto Madrone Association steep. So this purple is all mostly northern facing slopes with pretty steep soils. And again, lots of capacity for moisture retention. So you can overlay these soil types with the ecological zones of the area. So the Puerto Madrone Association, the large one, are the mountain loam, mountain savanna ecological sites, 62 to 7,800 feet elevation. Another big prominent one are these Log House Association, the Canyon Mountain Savanna, which is going to be all of the Madera Canyon and its watersheds reaching up through the property, just kind of bleeding out like a network of veins supplying moisture for this area and all of the surrounding ranches that utilize these resources. So outline of plant communities by Hendrickson and Johnston. These are recognized all across Chihuahuan Desert. I basically narrowed it down to these 6 that are represented pretty well on the preserve. So we can start to talk about aspect and how northern facing slopes differ from south facing slopes. And this is a good representation of how the sun obviously hits these southern facing slopes more during the day. For those of you that aren't familiar, a lot of you are familiar with this with how this works, but the northern facing slopes are going to be shaded throughout more parts of the day here in the northern hemisphere. And whenever you shade these reaches of the mountains, you're providing more moisture retention, lots more resources for plant growth. And it's very, very pronounced in areas that are this topologically complex, with you have rugged mountains and deep sinuous canyons. So obviously these have provided niches, ecological evolutionary niches for organisms to adapt independently within these different types of ecosystems. So on the southern facing slopes, what we're mainly going to see is our Juniperus depiana, by far the most prolific, the most well-represented juniper in these higher reaches of the Davis Mountains. You get to areas that are basically only alligator juniper, recognized by these platelets in their bark right here. There's the female, the megasporangiate cones. Quercus grisea, probably the most common oak that you're going to see up in these areas all across the Davis Mountains. The gray oak, Quercus gravesii, which is going to be our Chisos red oak. So with the bristle tips, more characteristic of red oaks. Pinus symbroides with the tiny little fascicles, Mexican pinon. And then you have our north-facing slopes where you're going to get, again, steeper soils, more shade, more moisture retention. And this is where we're going to be able to see our ponderosa pines as well as our southwestern white pines. This Pinus ponderosa over here is the state record holder. And it's, I don't know the measurements off the top of my head. I want to say it's plus 80 feet tall and has, you know, roughly a 10-foot circumference or something like that. Anybody, where's Kaylee? Kaylee can tell me this later. So I don't remember the numbers on it, but it's absolutely massive. The southwestern white pine, this is also the state record holder. And I believe that this one died this year. So that's very unfortunate. And these ponderosas haven't been doing well either. I was just looking at the Forest Service website on Texas A&M, and we've lost 75% of our ponderosas in the Davis Mountains over the last decade. So there's a lot of work going into ponderosa pine forest ecosystems and how to properly manage and take care of them. And it mostly involves, you know, kind of eliminating the density of the forest around them so that we can start to spread them out further. But those are your two pines that you'll see in these areas, and the understory is made up of the silverleaf white oak, the Quercus hypoleucoides. So you flip those leaves under and it's just a blanket of tomentose white hairs on the bottom. So that's how you can tell that species. You're also going to see populations, isolated populations of quaking aspen. For those of you that aren't aware of how much of a northerly connection there is in these higher reaches of the Trans-Pecos Mountains. So these are some of their southernmost distributions. They also do spread down into Mexico as well in the Sierra Madres. So this is the largest one that I found on the property. It's a large grove of male quaking aspen. So if you didn't know, they are separate dioecious plants. So they have entirely male colonies because they connect via stolons and rhizomes and to create clones, obviously. And then they have separate dioecious female clones altogether. And I only found one female population on the property my entire work I was up there. These are the catkins of the male plant. So those are anthers releasing pollen. Very good. So the previous work that's been done on the property dates back all the way to the government, Asa Gray and John Torrey doing some of their property work for the Department of the Interior. Some of the more extensive later work came from Palmer and Hinckley. Hinckley was a UT botanist who came out and did an entire study over the vegetation of Mount Livermore, in which he covered pretty much the summit and almost like everything just immediately surrounding it. So we're talking south, where it is not on Nature Conservancy property anymore. So there's a lot of collections that he made on the southern part of the mountain that I didn't come across. I came across a few. Sykes and Smith came along later, then amended that list, added a bunch to it. Batena and Oswald, these are ponderosa study ecology papers. And then Bill Carr was extremely instrumental in making this project happen. He put together a preliminary list of the Davis Mountains in which he compiled basically all of these works and into one of our first basically floras, inventories of the Davis Mountains. So kind of getting into some of these more notable species really quick. Arenaria livermorensis is an endemic sandwort. Not a great picture of it. I have this is from our herbarium right there. Adam Black is a botanist who works out here a lot and has some amazing pictures of this plant. I actually wasn't able to come across this 10 years ago. I just didn't know if I was looking in the right place, but I never did find it. So I'm hoping to get up there and find it one day. I did find this one. This is Quercus depressipes, Mexican dwarf oak. Only occurs at the top of Mount Livermore, basically right up here underneath the summit, and there's a population of maybe 20 or so individuals there, but that only occurs here in the United States, and then a couple of ranges in Mexico, northern Mexico, but I think only 3 known localities on the planet. So this Arenaria livermorensis, again, is found only on Mount Livermore, and I believe on another property, Sawtooth Mountain. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yeah, it's been found in a couple of places. but only in the Davis Mountains. So Burkhollia hinklei is recognized from one collection from Leon Hinckley in 1940 something. So definitely one that I don't think has been rediscovered since. Penstemon cardinalis, I believe, is the same way Hinckley collected it. This one is also found in New Mexico, but I believe it has only been found once in the Davis Mountains. And since we're on the topic of endemics, this is Potamogeton clistocarpus. This is the Little Aguja pondweed, and it's actually only documented on a property north of the preserve. And again, that's going to be the only location, or it's actually a little bit northeast of the preserve, and this is the only known locality that's been documented on the planet as well. So also, while we're on the topic of endemics, I have to mention Styrax youngii, found in the Davis Mountains, but not on this property. I have to tell native plant enthusiasts about this because this is just a remarkable shrub that has only been found 3 times out in West Texas. And the first one was by Mary Sophie Young, who the plant is named after. She was one of the pioneering botanists of the Davis Mountains in the early 1900s out of Austin, and literally traversed just this crazy country, and was one of the first to take some notes on the flora of the property. And she made one collection of this plant in Olympia Canyon. That's basically all it says on the label. So we're not exactly sure where she might have been in Olympia Canyon. She might have been on the property, but probably not. She was probably a little further south. But that was the first known location, and then went undiscovered for 93 years or something like that, until our own Patty Manning. I don't know if Patty's here today. No, Patty found it again in 2012, I believe. So that was the second time she found it on the CF Ranch. And then I found it on another private property in the Davis Mountains. So third time this plant has ever been found. Gotta just throw that out there. And to be on a list with Mary Sophie Young and Patty Manning is a crazy, huge honor for me. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So disturbance regimes, we've got several fires that occurred on the property. These are the 2011 and 2012 fires. And definitely left an impact. I still see some areas of the preserve that are still recovering, but I think they're doing actually very well in some of these areas. So how the project went along was, just marching out into these mountains, and I was young and climbing cliffs like Laura's Rock. I searched all of these herbaria. We found specimens from herbaria obviously from Sul Ross's, UT Austin's, and New York Botanical Garden actually had a few as well. These others were contacted and I wasn't able to. UT El Paso obviously has many as well, but most of the specimens that were done for the herbaria search were from Sul Ross and University of Texas. So the field work included 4-wheeling and climbing up mountains into these canyons. There's just a few of my labels that you create with the surrounding vegetation, the locality, just a few of my special ones that I thought were nice and pretty. I took transects all across the property. There they are, interlaid with the fire disturbance and the geology and the soil types and geology. So each of these, I took a belt transect and counted every single thing that I could find within each of these locations, so that people could potentially go back in a few years maybe and kind of see what all has changed. So these 6 transects, skip through those, the Tobe Spring transect and the Olympia Chute transect. These last 2 are definitely the most, supposed to wait on that slide. Okay, so these 2 slides are the Transect 5 and Transect 6, definitely the most diverse. Tobe Spring is where there's a natural watershed, so lots of interesting stuff going on down here. And then the Olympia Chute is a northern facing slope that most people hike up when they're going to Livermore. So lots of diversity in both of these. Here is the herbaria search totaling 1,600 voucher specimens, 424 species. So this provided basically kind of like a baseline for the mountain. And the Jeff Davis County list of University of Texas's. So I was able to kind of use that as a comparison, all of Jeff Davis County compared to what was just found being documented on or close to this Davis Mountains Conservancy, Nature Conservancy property. So 78 species were in this herbaria search that were considered potential or unlikely because they were found in areas like Goat and Olympia Canyon. There is my collection sites all across the property that totaled in 570 vouchers and 280 species and over 66 families. So between 2011 and 2013, we got, again, 185 species, so not vouchered, and that the herbaria search did encounter, so I didn't find everything, but that's okay. New to the historic baseline included 44 additional species, 2 families, and 22 genera. 14 of these additional species were additional to the CAR list that he put together in 2005. 2 new records for Texas. We've got a 9.1% increase in the known species for the 18,360 acres. That's what I got that property as. Okay, so lots of rare species of global, state, and federal status. I'll go through just a few of those with you. And again, if you're interested in more of these numbers and stuff, I've got the publication available on Britt's website that I would be happy to give you a link to afterwards. So don't feel bad if I skip past a lot of these numbers and if you really want to go look at some of this stuff. So Osmeriza bipatriata is one of the federal listed plants that I did encounter quite a bit of, and this one is down in Tobe Canyon, and I haven't seen it actually since this year. So this is one that I would like to get back to and see if we can't find a little bit more of. But it's an Apiaceae, so it's a carrot family. It kind of grows from this central rosette of leaves where they just kind of all originate from one point. So that makes it a little easy to tell what it is, but you can see that with all of the grass and Sikios cucumber vine that's growing everywhere, it can be kind of tough to spot out. You gotta know what you're looking for with those highly pinnatisect leaves. And so there's a couple of little babies here as well that are over here. This one over here is probably, I don't know, roughly 4 inches across. So and then these are ones over here on the bottom left are even smaller. Okay, additional rare species, we've got Pulmonium pauciflorum, subspecies Hinckley's Jacob's ladder. We've got Drabus stanleyi. This is a mustard that really kind of grows with all of this spike moss up in the higher reaches of Mount Livermore, and you can see it basically just growing right out of the side of some straight up vertical rocks. So this is one that is only found in the Davis Mountains in the state of Texas, and it's also in the mountains in southwestern New Mexico, all across southern Mexico, and I believe southwestern Arizona as well. But again, some of these species that are restricted to these extremely tall elevations and just wild habitats. So Solanum daviscense, the Davis Mountains nightshade. Aquilegia longissima is a larkspur columbine. Longspur columbine, I think, is actually the common name. So Ranunculaceae, the buttercup family, and one of the largest, flowers that you'll see growing out natively out here. Basically anywhere with these long spurs that come down from the petals. It's pretty easy to spot. Very popular plant to grow in shades in our native gardens. We might have some for sale over there. Galium wrightii, this is a bedstraw, it's a rubiaceae, so related to scarlet bavardia and things like that. Peridoli rupestris variety, rupestris, this is also going to be an endemic found, I believe, only in the state of Texas. And additional rare species include this one, Ansinaria marginata. This is one that Hinckley found and documented in the 40s and wasn't documented again, I believe, until I came across one little population on Olympia Chute. And Enothere texensis is another really pretty. This one is the Texas primrose, and known from only one county, being known from only Jeff Davis County in Texas. And then you've got Muhlenbergia brevis. This is a tiny little muley that grows up on the top of Livermore basically, and only reaches heights of about 4 or 5 inches at most. Astragalus giganteus is a loco weed, and then Sedum cockerellii, Hacelium pinnatorum, variety pinnatorum. This is a Boraginaceae, so this is going to be one of the few real desert-oriented families that we have up here, and we'll talk more about desert families here in just a minute. So need to continue through. So some other noteworthy additions: Lanicia scheidiana was a new Texas locality known to occur in New Mexico and Arizona. And this one I have to give credit to Nathan Taylor, because he was the one that saw that the achenes of this plant were smaller and darker than the achenes of the similar Lanicia. They look pretty small and dark already, right? But these ones were small and darker. So you've got other different kind of morphologically weird plants down here that I collected and included in the list, and probably need to go back and look at a few of these again and see if I can be confused at them some more, basically. So these 24 species were originally found only in this Goat Canyon area, so on the southern slopes of the Davis Mountains, and not really known to occur on the property proper per se, but these are several of the cool ones. This one right here, the most notable, Geranium seemannii. This one, Hinckley, documented in Goat Canyon, and that was the only ever documentation of this plant in U.S. history. It's known across Mexico and even in the South America, but I found it again in Goat Canyon, or not in Goat Canyon, but pretty much right here. So kind of right here on the southern slope of Mount Livermore, down here into the Short Pine Canyon, pretty close before it runs off of the property onto and close to the Goat Canyon. So this is the first ever picture of this plant in the United States on U.S. soil. So that's pretty cool. So geranium, nice little geranium. Well, thank you. All right, so we've got endemic non-native species across the area. These are endemic to Davis Mountains, endemic again, being that they're found nowhere else. Arnaria livermorensis, endemic to the Trans-Pecos Bahia, Parietally rupestris, Cordalis curviciliqua being, this is the Bahia biglovii, endemic to Trans-Pecos, and then Cordalis curviciliqua is endemic to Texas. So these are on the property. And then we've got all of these non-native or naturalized species as well. So lots of nasty things on there: barnyard grass, Mediterranean lovegrass, layman's lovegrass, several rumex, tumbleweed, things like that. So these transects, kind of just really quickly running through all these. Again, I mentioned that 5 and 6 were going to be the pretty much the heaviest in species. Number 2 was as well, but those definitely representing a high portion of the species out here. And then here's kind of just a quick chart of how everything goes through there. And again, I've got all this information to share with you afterwards if you would like. Let's see, moving on. Now it's going to get into a lot of pictures. So how I split up this results section was I pretty much described each of these vegetation associations by Henriksen and Johnston. So the first being the sandy arroyo scrub. So this is basically going to be where you have sandy, intermittent streams, usually plenty of water associated with these areas. So the barnyard grass, Echinochlora cruciale. This is Baccharis salicifolia. So this one is the seep willow and does a really good job at kind of holding together soil and maintaining riparian areas. One of our nice natives for that job. Polynicia uniglandulosa, and I believe that's changed to a dodecandra now. So again, this is 10 and 11 years ago. So some of these names are definitely out of date. And yeah, I need to change a lot of these. Muhlenbergia rigens, Cosmos parviflorus. So it has 2 in there. This is the deer grass, a very, very popular ornamental clump grass that we grow out here a lot. Cosmos parviflorus. We saw this yesterday up on the Caldwell. Juglans major, the Arizona walnut, Flugia paradoxa, Apache plume, Persicaria pennsylvanica. This one's the nodding smartweed. popular monarch pollinator, Agastache micrantha. I forgot the common name of that mint, but it's very, very aromatic. It's one of the most aromatic mints that you can, little leaf Agastache. Little flower Agastache, something like that. And then you've got the Grama grasslands. So we're kind of grading up in elevation and away from these water sources. So the characteristic grasses that you'll see: Butylo gracilis, Curtipendula, blue grama, side oats, Leptocola dubia, Leptocola dubia, now the Sacosperma dubia, so it's green springletop, another name that's changed, Aragrostis mexicana, Mexican lovegrass, Bothriocloa barbanotus, the cane blue stem, and then you've got associated shrubs found within these areas too. Definitely Mimosa aculeata carpa being our cat claw mimosa, Butylo hirsuta, the blue grama, or sorry, the hairy grama, Cylindropuntia imbricata, cane choya, and Zinnia grandiflora is what you're going to see a lot of in these grassland areas. And then we kind of grade up again in elevation to our montane chaparral. So kind of the more exposed rocky outcrops of the higher mountains. So one of my favorite pictures that I took up there the whole time. So associated species, you'll see Heterotheca viscida, Philopodium wrightii, which is a mustard, probably the tallest mustard. This one can get kind of like almost the size of a small tree. So nice white flowers. Bavardia ternifolia, the scarlet Bavardia or firecracker bush, Philadelphus crinitus, mock orange, Fenlera rupicola. Some of these, whenever I can't remember a common name, that I'll let you know by not saying it. Eriogonum jamesii, James buckwheat, Cercocarpus montanus, so mountain mahogany, and Eremogone fenleri. That's a Caryophyllaceae. Can't tell you the common name off the top of my head. So again, lots of pictures here, so we'll see if the computer breaks down or not. So Linum lewisii, the blue flax, Sicyos laciniatus. This is a cucumber vine that grows, just spreads all over all of these shrubs in these areas, and kind of just kind of looks like it's pretty aggressive a lot. But I know that it's a popular pollinator of some caterpillars and some butterflies up there that people are doing work on. Phacelia rupestris, these are white curls, Hydrophyllaceae. Some of the few cacti that we have, Opuntia polycantha, Trichophora. Not a lot of cacti up here, but there is a few. This one's another one. This is Whedon's hedgehog cactus. Echinocereus verdiflorus variety, Whedonii, Verbicina aureophylla. This is mountain crownbeard, another popular yellow composite that we use a lot in our native landscaping. Urtica graciliente. This one is the stinging nettle. So this one's in the Urticaceae family, and it's got formic acid in its spines, just like bull nettle in East Texas. So you walk into that, and you'll definitely feel it. And it grows really, really tall, up to like 6-7 feet tall, and sometimes it grows in huge, dense stands that I have come into situations where I have to walk right through them. And yeah, so it's definitely not all nice up there, not all nice and pretty. Paracombe caudata, another very, very prolific sunflower shrub that grows up there at the higher elevations. Okay, so that's our montane chaparral. Juniper pinyon woodland, probably the more extensive eco-vegetation association. So looking here across this field, you've got the junipers, you've got purple muley making up that grassland right there, Muhlenbergia rigida, interspersed with some blue stem, probably cane or silver. You've got all of this Texas bahia, this Bigelow's bahia, actually, that is endemic to the area that I've seen huge fields growing across. And then you've got the bull muley, also Muhlenbergia immerslei, another very, very popular clump grass that we use out here a lot. Colligania angustifolia is a little bean vine that grows all over everything and will just look like Christmas lights covering areas of these forests. Acalypha neomexicana, Ipamea lindheimeri, very attractive, huge morning glory. That's probably roughly 5 inches across. The Tragia embleodonta, you got Cyta neomexicana, You've got Phlox nana, the white-eyed phlox, Scuria pinnata, variety was Lezennii, and these Glandularia bipennatophyta. A lot of people have seen these. These can form big, extensive mats, and they can flower basically from like February till August, I think, or till later into September. I think I've seen them flower, but they're early flowers and really, really attractive. That light magenta color. Salactis tenuis, Tetranurus linearifolius is another yellow flowered composite that's up there. Everybody knows that their yellow flowered composites are abound in areas like this. So, and again, we'll form huge thickets of fields, and that's one of the more common ones is that Tetranurus. Rainbow cactus, Heterosperma pinnata, a tiny little yellow composite. There's the Bahia biglovii that's making up this that ground behind the screen. Discretis de linearis, Disodia puposa. This is one of the Tegidiae tribes, I believe, and it's got these orange glands all over it, and it is super aromatic. That's one of the most profound smells that we were smelling yesterday out at the Caldwell, and most of you guys at Madera Canyon, or at the Madera Overlook as well. So very, very pungent. And then the Stevia serrata is another composite, and this is actually the genus that that stevia is extracted from, not this plant, not the species. Okay, several more. Let's see. We're getting into now our kind of our oak woodlands. So we have our juniper woodlands, which kind of consist of more southern facing slopes. The oak woodlands are going to be kind of integrated with the pine oak, with the pines as well. So I kind of combine both of those together. So you've got oak woodland. This is Quercus gambellii growing in Tobe Canyon that grows super, super tall and straight. Very, very unusual looking for a mountain in the desert, right? And then you've got all of this cucumber vine. That's all of that sikyos that can literally just climb up over it, looking real Amazonian. You've got these Quercus grizzia scrubs that are formed kind of more on the southern facing slopes, but can also kind of work their way around as well. This is a field of annual goldeneye in 2012, and you can see the patches of it that just pop up all across the mountain. You can see that stuff for miles and miles away. These were all taken in 2012. So right after the drought, everything got a good bit of rain in 2012 and was like, let's go. And we've got and so here's kind of where the pine oak woodland, where I kind of combine them all together. So this is also on your way up to Tobe Canyon. You can just see the understory that is occurring under here. And then you've got understories of this yellow composite. This is Pachyra millilobata. You've got these burned areas of pine oak woodland where all of this standing cypress was allowed to just take over. That one's Ipomopsis aggregata. And then you've got the northern slope of Olympia. This one's obviously, I played a little bit with the saturation, but not too much on this picture. But yeah, that red that's occurring right there, that's a ragleaf goosefoot, which I'll show you here in a minute. But what I'm getting at is these areas are where the diversity is really, really going to start to just explode. And the amount of flowers that you're going to see, I challenge anywhere else in Texas to show you this much diversity. So all of these morning glories, Ipomea, Heteracea, Solanum douglasii, it's obviously a Solanaceae nightshade. You've got Silene, Laciniata, Thalictrum fenleri, Fenler's meadowrue, Lotus plebeius, Simopterus limonii, Piptocatum pringlei is Pringle's ricegrass, Heliomeris longifolia, that's that annual goldeneye that was all over the mountain just a second ago. There's the Ipomopsis aggregata that was underneath that, those burned ponderosas, Commelina dianthifolia, Geranium staspitosum, Arenaria ludens, Galansoga parviflora, Campanula rotunda folia. This one's actually a northwestern Campanulaceae. So again, representative of more northerly connections all across the country. Hieracium carneum, Telia trifoliata. This is going to be a Rutaceae, so one of the only citrus plants that we have up in the Davis Mountains. Hesperidanthus linearifolius, that's a mountain mustard, Allium glandulosum, so some wild onions, Erysimum asperum, And then Frangula, Betulafolia, birchleaf buckthorn, Ipomea, cristulata, so little scarlet morning glories. These are also can just look like Christmas lights, especially when you have those Colligania pea vine that I showed you earlier. Those and these together can really just like take over plants and put out hundreds of flowers. Lithospermum, multiflorum, monarda, pectinata. I can't really see this one, but this is, yeah, you can see it good on the screen. So that's a mint, another very aromatic mint. Bee balm or horse mint, I think is the common name. Asclepias texana. So one of the couple of Asclepias up there. Carmenacea, tenuiflora, Stellaria cuspidata, Lathyrus graminiifolius. So another pea vine thing. It's kind of like a vine. It's kind of like a forb too. And then Pseudonuphthallium straminium. You've got Achillea millefolium. So this one is another Asteraceae and was named after Achilles because this is yarrow and its medicinal qualities date back to thousands and thousands of years. Apparently he treated his soldiers with yarrow. Dysphaenia graveolens. So this is the ragleaf goosefoot in the Chenopodiaceae family. And this is all what turns this blood red color in, that you saw in this picture and in the chaparral picture. So that's what it looks like when it's green and then it turns that red color. And it's got kind of like a weird cinnamony smell that I just was made aware of a couple of years ago. Agritina herbacea, Biden's big lovii is another very, very prolific plant up there. If you've ever come across this before, you'll definitely know it. These are the fruits that produce the achenes, and these will stick to anything that is cotton, especially if you walk through something like a field of that. And yeah, you're not getting out of there unmarked by the Bidens. So yeah, and it's going to hit you right back. So I've only got a few minutes left. So this is just the herbaria search, kind of the discussion section of the paper. And you know, we were able to make a lot of inferences from the study, basically what the past vegetation is that has shaped the influence of the vegetation on this property today. So lots of collectors have collected since the turn of the millennium. Most of this study that I put together was basically the collections from Sul Ross and from UT Austin. So obviously we need to do a lot more work up here as far as cataloging the vegetation of this area. And we've got other regional floras that I used in the analysis of all of this. So basically you've got, and I've got several of these charts that have different groups. So here's your phylogenetic groups, your ferns and your fern allies, your gymnosperms, monocots, and eudicots, and the importance, the diversity that's found within both the Southwest floras, which is right here, so the Southwestern United States by McLaughlin in 1986, and then Chihuahuan Desert, and then the Dead Horse Mountains, which was Jocelyn Fenstermacher in Big Bend National Park, the Guadalupe Mountain National Park, the Jeff Davis County, which was taken again from that list from UT, and then my property right here. So lots of interesting things that you can kind of discern from looking at these percentages. Definitely things with like fern importance. Okay, fern importance. Not a lot of people recognize how much of a fern diversity we have out here in the Trans-Pecos, and so that's kind of represented right there as a. And then you've got families. Here is families, and then basically kind of using some of the same floras. You've got the Forbidden Mountain area, which is another thesis that was done pretty close to the property. You've got Jeff Davis County, the Guadalupe Mountains, Big Bend National Park, and then the Southwest, and then looking at all of these families and their importance. So with Asteraceae and Poaceae, the sunflowers and the grass being being obviously the two most dominant families, which is characteristic all across the Southwest, but kind of looking at where you can see the increased importance in Asteraceae. You'll also see kind of a decrease in Poaceae and vice versa. And then just looking at all of these other families as well, the different life forms that are found. So the difference between trees, shrubs, subshrubs. Couldn't use as many data from floras for this, but I've got the Forbidden Mountain area, which is a mountain in the Davis Mountains of lower elevation. So you're going to see things like more grasses, more shrubs in the Forbidden Mountain area. And then the last bit of regional floristic analysis that I used was from McLaughlin's study of tropics to tundra is what this publication was called. And by looking at genera importance within each of these different areas, you've got the Chihuahuan province that branches north out of Mexico, the Madrean province, which is more west into Arizona and as well as into northern Mexico, northern west Mexico, Great Plains province east of us, the Sonoran province far to the west. And then by comparing, again, these different genera that make up most of the species within these types of lists, you're able to come up with similarity indices that are used basically on a 0.1 to 0.9 computing scale. So 0.1 being very similar, or very not similar, and 0.9 being very similar. So whenever you kind of plug in all of this is when you compare the Davis Mountains with, say, the Chihuahuan element, roughly 0.45 similarity index with what I found on this upper elevation property. So lots in comparison with the Sierra Madre Oriental over there to the east of Mexico, and then the Madrean complex with the Apachean element and the Sierra Madre Occidental element, 0.35 similarity index down to 0.1. And then you've got the Great Plains province, the Comanchean element, and the Kansan element out of the Llano Estacado, and then kind of the Edwards Plateau hill country of Texas, the Colorado Plateau element, again, representing that small northerly connection, and the Sonoran province out here from the Sonoran Desert. And then here is just kind of a quick overlay of how these radial graphs, these contour lines work from the Chihuahuan element. So the epicenter being down there in the Sierra Madres. And then you've got the Madrean and the Apachean element out of southeastern Arizona. So there's the Apachean, there's the Kansan element, and this is again kind of going in order of similarity. So it goes Chihuahuan, Apachean, the Kansan element out of North Texas, Comanchean element, and then finally Sierra Madre Occidental, and then the Sonoran, and then the Colorado Plateau, kind of equaling about at 0.1 roughly their similarity index with the property. So just kind of a cool way to look at it from a regional context. So lots of very important people involved in this project that I can't thank enough. Jim Zesch was my advisor throughout the entire project. Michael Powell of Sul Ross Herbarium and Sul Ross was hugely helpful and still is always to this day. Bill Carr, again, was pretty much who thought of putting this project together. Talked to Jim Zesch talked to me, and we did it. Tom Wendt at UT Austin, Nature Conservancy's Sean Benedict, Greg Crow. Greg Crow is who lives out at the preserve, and he is a gem of a person. Chris Pipes, John Cargis, Jackie Poole, and Sul Ross's Martin Terry, Bonnie Warnock, and Patty Manning, of course. So that is it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time.